Hey everybody, Long Turtle here. I'm going to be talking today about tips for beginning survivors, people who have just started out the game, maybe you just bought it, or maybe you've only been playing it for a little while, and you're looking to up your game with Survivor and start heading towards those purple and red ranks. So I have 5 tips today that we're going to talk about. Let's get into it. So tip number 1 is time management. This is something that I see a few people struggle with even at some of the higher ranks, and is something that you want to learn and figure out as soon as possible to get the best results while you're playing your game. Now, oftentimes, if I'm not in a chase, I will be on a generator, doing a gen, maybe even doing a totem, or trying to heal somebody maybe, any of those things, and I will see somebody just kind of lurking around the jungle gym or hiding behind a window or hiding behind a wall, just doing nothing. Now, this game is basically one big time management challenge. Effectively, I mean, the killer and the survivors, how you spend your time can make the difference between everybody getting out and really no one getting out sometimes, in some cases. When you're going around and someone is being chased, and you can see them being chased, or you see the icon on the bottom left where somebody gets hit, you know that they're being chased. Try not to be somebody who's lurking around jungle gyms, crouching places, trying to find toolboxes all the time. Get on a gen. That's the number one thing I can say for time management. Try and get on a gen. If you're not being chased, 9 times out of 10 you should be on a generator. That is going to basically give the most value to the person being chased. There's nothing more sad than being chased and dropping 2 to 3 pallets on a killer, looping them 2 or 3 times around 2 jungle gyms, feeling really good about yourself, only to get downed and put up a hook and see one person is in the basement getting an item, another person is just crouched near nothing, and then there's one other person working on a generator, and they didn't even get through a full generator the entire time you got chased, so it feels almost like it's for nothing. No, I'm not saying never cleanse totems and never go into chests and get items. All I'm saying is that when you're going around the map and you come across them, feel free to cleanse a totem or to search an item box and get a cool item. But don't go out of your way 2 minutes to go find a chest somewhere, run all the way across the map to go to the chest in the basement while someone's being chased, when you could have spent that 2 minutes doing a gen by yourself and actually completed an entire gen. The last thing I'm going to say about time management is about co-op actions. Anytime that you can help someone else heal another survivor, or if multiples of you are injured, you can all get together and heal each other. Or if you get on a gen and you get 2 or even 3 people on a gen, obviously it's going to save you a bunch of time and get things done faster. Something you want to avoid is if you are on a generator and you see 2 people run up near the jungle gym you're at or near where you are and start healing one another, stop doing your gen. Go over and help them heal. You'll get everybody healed faster, and then all of you can go on and do the gen together, which will get everything done faster, and you get more points for it. So anytime you can do co-op actions, just remember the game is built off of a teamwork mechanic, and you are rewarded for it in the game, and it is a very, very big time saver. On to tip number 2, which is plan your escape. Now, generally when you start lurking around in the beginning of the game, one of the most common things you're going to do is either you start in front of a totem or a chest and you open it, and that's fantastic where you cleanse the totem, or you start in front of a generator, in which case you're going to just start doing the generator, or at least you should. Now, when you start doing this, lots of times, and this happened to me for a very long time before I started to really look into this, the killer shows up, you're like, oh no. You go run to 2 rocks, and you're like, I'm going to use the pallet here, and lo and behold, RNG has come for your soul. There's no actual pallet that spawned there. You have nothing, and you get smacked by the killer in the first 10 to 15 seconds of the game, because he ran across and found you. Now, this is something that is a little weird at first to try and remember, but you get used to it. When you go see a gen right before you get on it, take a few seconds and just kind of run left and right real quick, kind of look around and see, hey, all right, I'm at this junk pile. There's a pallet right there. And then if I go to the right, okay, that's a TL wall with 2 windows, and maybe run up to that and look out. All right, and then there's a pallet there. Now I'm going to go run and start the gen. Maybe it took 10 seconds, 12 seconds for you to go do that. But now if the killer shows up, you say, all right, I already know I want to run to this pallet at the junk pile, and I'm going to drop it on him. And then after that, or if I get hit, I'm going to use my speed boost to get to the TL wall. And then after I jump a window once or twice, I already know that I can go to that hay bale that has a pallet at it, and I'll go from there. Normally after 2 or 3 jungle gyms or pallet loops, you'll normally either be downed or hit, or you'll figure it out from there. But just having that small planning can really, really save you from getting hit, turning around somewhere and just running in a direction away from the killer, and before you know it, you've pretty much trapped yourself right near a hook with no pallets or anything around you, so you know he's going to down you and get you up on a hook in the first 30 seconds of the game. And it's something you can use throughout the game, but the beginning is where it's really, really going to matter, because nothing feels worse more often than not than when you're the first person to go down in the game in a chase that lasted for 10 to 15 seconds, or when you're doing a gen and you're all excited you got to halfway and you just see someone go down immediately. So tip number 3 is a big one, and it is chase awareness. When you're being chased around, a lot of times when I started out, one of my biggest problems was as I was running forward, I would just keep my camera just facing forward, and before I knew it, I got smacked right in the back of the head by a Huntress hatchet, or I went to go jump a window, not realizing how close the killer was to me, and they'd grab me off the window or just destroy me. So the first thing you want to do when you start getting chased is start to become comfortable with moving your camera around to view your surroundings. And this includes the killer themselves, so you know how far away they are from you. This can very, very much determine whether you want to keep running past a pallet and loot them around a jungle gym once, or if you need to drop that pallet immediately because they're about to strike you. The other important part of that is pertaining to some of the killers, like I just mentioned earlier in an example, people like the Huntress or the Doctor, Deathstalker, Demogorgon, who has a lunge attack. A lot of their special moves can actually, you can look at them and see when they're about to do them and time moving out of the way accordingly, which is a very, very powerful tool and more often than not a necessity. The second big part of chase awareness is a term that you've probably heard in many other games, which is map awareness. And when you're being chased, you're going to be running great distances all over the place, or hopefully you will if you don't get down quickly. Something you don't want to do, things you want to avoid, are running towards people that are trying to heal if you can see them or hear them. Heading towards generators that you can hear people working on, because as you run past them, the killer's going to break off from you and disrupt them doing the gen, probably injure one or more people, and kick the gen. And that's just going to set the entire survivor team back again and put the killer on more momentum. So you want to avoid trying to go near what the other survivors are doing. Now, if you're not playing on a Survival Friends team, that can be very, very difficult at times, and it will take some time to get used to, and even then, sometimes it's just unavoidable. That's fine. But just be aware of it as you're learning how to loop killers and where to take them. Now, that brings us to the second part of that. Where do you take the killer once you started a chase? In the beginning, normally, it's just trying to loot them around jungle gyms in general, because you're going to have all the pallets and the level available if you're in the first chase. It's a very, very powerful position to be in if you're doing it right. But as the game starts to progress and gets to the later stages, you will have generators that are already done and completed. These are known as dead zones. They're places that you want to lead the killer because there's no objectives there. So if the killer follows you there, Even if you go down, you're not going to be hooked and they're not going to be near any objectives that the rest of your team is doing. It's a very, very powerful thing. Also, there are really, really strong loops in the game that each level has that really could be considered dead zones in themselves that you can lead the killer towards. Now, this doesn't mean that all killers are going to follow you to these places, but at the same time, the trade-off is, well, they stop chasing you. So you can recover and go find a generator as the chase transitions to another survivor. The last thing I want to say about chase awareness has to do with the basement. The basement is a very horrible place to be as a survivor, and it puts you at a great disadvantage, and nobody really likes being there. So, normally you can't do this if you get in the first chase of the game, but if you happen to be walking around the map and you're near the killer shack, check to see if the basement is there, or if you know it's in a place where it normally spawns outside of the killer shack, just take a quick peek and see if it's there. This way, as you get in chases and as you're moving around the map, you will know, oh shit, I'm being chased. I'm probably going to go down, and if you're near the basement, you can just take a quick turn and just get that extra distance away from it so that you don't end up being picked up and brought down there, especially not in the beginning of the game, which can make it very, very difficult for survivor teams. Tip number 4 is a quick tip, and that is use items in place of perks. Now, some people may disagree with me, and that's okay, but just hear me out on this. So when I started out playing Dead by Daylight, I immediately chose Claudette. I got self-care as soon as I could, and I took up one of my perk spots in place of using medkits or anything else, and I used it. The problem is, self-care is also really slow. And I also found that more often than not, instead of me using self-care on myself, my allies, especially when I played with my friends, would come find me and heal me. So I ended up not using it as much. Same thing with using perks like Resilience, where when I was injured, I would do everything faster, and I was like, oh man, I'll get hit, and then I will go do gens faster. Well, normally you don't want to spend most of the match injured, and we go back to point 1, which is where people come and heal you very often. You could just use a toolkit and put some add-ons onto it, and you could probably do most of a gen very, very quickly, which kind of gives you that same boost. And you don't have to be injured to do it. Now, I'm not saying eventually you won't want to use any of those perks, but when you're starting out, save your perk slots for different things that might help you more, and you're going to have lots of items, so you may as well use them. I was a big person on not using items when I started out, and then once I started to use them, I was like, oh man, I should have been using these the whole entire time. They make everything easier. And to give you an example, at one point, Claudette was my first survivor that I leveled up. I think at one point when I started using items, I had collectively over 100-something medkits that I just never used. And as soon as I started using items, I started taking those perks away that I was using in place of them, and making really, really cool perk combinations, which was a lot of fun and very, very beneficial. So don't be afraid to use your items. That's what they're there for, and you will always, always get more of them in the Blood Web. That brings us to our last tip. Tip number 5, use detection perks. When you start this game, or if you haven't been playing for a very long time, there's going to be a lot of perks out there that look really awesome, and they are fun. But at the same time, you're not really going to know where tons of things are on the map. You're not really going to know what all the killers do. Sometimes you're not even really going to know where the killer comes from until they walk up and hit you in the face. But there's good news, and this doesn't matter what survivor you start with, who, of course, they will have 3 starting perks of their own, which are awesome. But there's universal perks that everybody can get in the Blood Web right from the start as survivor. And there's a lot that will help you in the beginning to get information. And for instance, Deja Vu is a perk that when you start out, it'll show you 3 generators and where they are. And when you complete one, it'll cycle that and show you 3 other ones. So if you're somebody starting out and you don't really know where gens are and you're having a lot of trouble, start adding points in your Blood Web. You'll probably come across Deja Vu. It's a very, very useful perk in the beginning to pick up. Outside of that, there's also things that can help you detect the killer themselves. Premonition and Spine Chill are two of the biggest ones, and I can tell you right now, Spine Chill is used by red rank survivors all the time. And what they do is when the killer gets close to you and meets a certain criteria, it'll activate or it will exhaust. It'll show you, oh, okay, the killer's almost here. This is very, very helpful, especially against stealth killers like Ghostface, Wraith, and the Pig, who sneak up on people, and they use that stealth to get the upper hand on survivors. Now, as an honorable mention to that, if you're looking to start to level up certain survivors, since we're talking about perks anyway, last thing I'm going to add on to this tip is there is a survivor, Bill, and he has teachable perks, mainly Unbreakable and Borrowed Time. Now, he is a free survivor that you start the game with, so it doesn't cost anything. He starts out available. If you level him up, now, Unbreakable is considered by some people, especially killer mains, to be known as a crutch perk, and they get a little angry that people use it. But it is there probably for the health of the game on some level. It also allows you to heal a little bit faster. I'm not going to get into a huge debate about that. Some people use it, some people don't. But it's very, very helpful when you're starting out. It can really, really give you an edge if you can get up and maybe make a save. You'll learn to love it. The last one is Borrowed Time. I think Borrowed Time is one of the best perks in the game, personally. And what it does is basically, if you get a survivor off of a hook while they're in the terror radius of the killer, then they get a free hit, basically, and it just puts them into what's called the deep wound status, where they get to run away, and if they mend before a bar goes down and reaches 0, then they're good. They are just injured. It can be used offensively by toxic survivors and things of that nature, which we won't get into in this video, but it is very, very helpful to have, especially if killers are camping or if you don't really have a choice, especially if there's only 2 of you left to get this person off the hook and you're in the killer's terror radius. It gives the person getting off the hook a fighting chance, and it helps both of you gain altruism points. So I highly suggest that as one of the #1 perks to pick up as Survivor. And there you have it. Those are my 5 beginner's tips for survivors. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, feel free to hit the like button below. Also, feel free to leave any questions in the comment section below. I stream on Twitch every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday from 6 to 8. There's a link in the details below on this video. Feel free to come and hang out with us.